Welcome back. Your host, Alencia Johnson.
Give it up for our panelists one more time. And give it up for yourselves for still being here this afternoon. So I told you all we are going to globalize this conversation with two dignitaries who have made their way here to be with us, to have a conversation on why you should consider investing in the continent of Africa and whether our current global political environment supports it. So please welcome Dr. Elsie Kanza, Ambassador of the United Republic of Tanzania to the United States of America. We also have Christopher Kirigua, Deputy Ambassador and the National Treasury Chief Representative for the Republic of Kenya to the United States of America. And moderating this conversation will be Frank Holland, who is an anchor and reporter for CNBC.
Thank you, Alencia. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? All right, we're gonna have a really interesting conversation. Why don't we start off here? Has anyone ever been to Tanzania? Raise your hands. See a few, I see a few. What about, has anybody been to Kenya? All right, we're gonna take you there economically, financially, hopefully emotionally, maybe a little bit of emotions too. So we're gonna get started. Ambassador Elsie, let's begin with you. Let's talk about the mission for your ambassadorship in the consulate when it comes to the United States economically.
Thank you, Frank, and good afternoon to everyone. Since very few of you have been to Tanzania, I'm going to kick off just by situating Tanzania for you. Tanzania is a peaceful, democratic, and politically stable country located in the eastern part of Africa. Tanzania borders 8 countries, 6 of which are landlocked. And in terms of geographical size, we're twice the size of the state of California and 1.4 times the size of the state of Texas. About 35% of the country is under conservation. That's about the same, it's equivalent to the size of the UK, Netherlands, and Switzerland combined. So you should visit. Key attractions, as Frank alluded to, is the beautiful islands of Zanzibar. We have the highest mountain in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro, as well as the magnificent Serengeti National Park. More important, we have one of 2 female presidents, heads of state in Africa. Our president is Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. I serve her. She appointed me in 2021 when she became president after our president passed away. So under the Constitution, in line with the Constitution, she was vice president and took over as president. And a key focus of her leadership is in transforming the country by putting the private sector into the driver's seat. And so since 2021, a big focus has been on improving the business environment and tackling challenges that the private sector is facing, both the local private sector and the international private sector. And to cut a long story short, we currently hold East Africa's highest credit rating, with a B1 rating from Moody's and a B+ rating from Fitch. Which is really a testament of the efforts that have been made to improve that environment. In terms of what we focus on, President Samia's mandate to her ambassadors is to drive our commercial diplomatic relations. And so I spend most of my time with my team focused on increasing trade, investment, and tourism between the US and Tanzania. The US is the largest source of our tourists outside of Africa. So that goes without saying. Our challenge is that our brand is very much associated with tourism and development, because until USAID ceased its activities, we were also one of the leading recipients of support from USAID. And so this rebranding and repositioning has been critical. Key focus is just attributes, and so I'll quickly just touch on that and wrap up. We are a big country, as I said, geographically, and what that translates into is that natural resources are a key driver of our economy. We are a mineral-rich country. We're rich in critical minerals, rare earth metals, industrial minerals, precious and semi-precious stones. The Tanzanite is sourced only from Tanzania, for example. We have the world's second largest helium deposit, for instance, nickel, considered one of the best deposits in the world. As an example, for agriculture, agriculture is one of our 3 key exports from the country. Again, for instance, we're the largest producer of pulses in Africa. And really, we could go on and on, but the key message was, because the US is such a big market, it's very important to focus on where we could make a difference. And that was only in terms of trade, areas where we are top 5 producers in Africa or potential to be, or top 10 producers or potential to be. Apart from that, we all know infrastructure is a challenge, and so that's also been an area of discussion with the American private sector, with energy being a major attraction, and it's also an issue across the continent. So at the beginning of this year, Tanzania hosted the Africa Energy Summit under Mission 300, and this is a mission to connect 300 million Africans by 2030. And lastly, in terms of just investment opportunities, in terms of FDI, the telco industry leads in terms of investment from the US to Tanzania. And healthcare, obviously, because it was a major recipient of aid from USAID, has also been very strong in terms of attracting investment from the US.
As Ambassador Elsie mentioned, it's a very diverse country, a very diverse economy. If you've ever been to the Serengeti, it's very beautiful. So Zanzibar, an island in the Indian Ocean. So 2 very beautiful parts of Tanzania. I want to go to Tanzania's neighbor to the north, Kenya. Ambassador Chris, can we talk to us about your mission when it specifically comes to the U.S. and some of the economic goals for Kenya?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Frank. First, I'd like to greet each one of you here. It's great to see the large numbers of people, and also great to see the number of people who've been able to visit Kenya. As a mission, we look at it, the US as a strategic partner. And this forum, and I really thank what Alfonso and his team has done in terms of bringing the Black society together. Now, as a mission, we look at, one thing is economic diplomacy. The African Americans and Africans have always tried to to create bridges between each other, but it's proven to be a challenge over time. Yeah, it is an opportunity that is untapped and something that needs to change with each one of us. As Kenyan Embassy, what we're looking at, and part of the Kenya government, is to get these linkages with our diaspora. We see each one of you, the Black community, as our diaspora. We look at you as potential partners to come in and invest together. The only way we can be able to bridge this, create bridges between the 2 of us is if we find long-term partnerships, and there's no better partnership than investment partnerships. So we are here to engage with you about the opportunities which are available. Kenya is well known for its Silicon Savannah. We are very big in tech. One of the biggest innovations in the world is M-Pesa. M-Pesa is a financial inclusion platform, mobile platform, which was created in Kenya, that has become a global platform which you enable to transfer money all over the world. We're happy to change ideas. So as we sit at the embassy, we look at ourselves as partners to come in to build these bridges on the economic side. We also look at the bilateral side, where we look at enhancing our relationships between the US and Kenya. Yeah? And not just Kenya, Kenya and Africa. Yeah? So we're looking at ourselves as a bridge, but obviously I know my sister, Ambassador Elsie, who I've known for over 15 years, we have a lot of similarities as countries. So, and there are loads of areas we can complement each other, so we do not need to compete. Yeah? And the opportunity is so large that you do not need to just look at one country. And Africa is extremely big, but the size of opportunity is equally to the size of the continent.
All right. Kenya, also a very beautiful place. As you mentioned, Nairobi is a tech hub. Microsoft, a number of other big tech companies have a big presence there in Nairobi. Ambassador Elsie, I want to come back over to you. You mentioned the bond rating of Tanzania. That's one way to, Credit rating, excuse me. How would you like to see Americans get involved in investing in Tanzania? What ways can they do that actively?
Excellent question. So one of my biggest challenges when I arrived, September 2021, with this mission to advance our commercial diplomacy relations, is that I discovered our trade numbers were very low. So trade with the US was about $380 million. Our largest trading partner being China at over $8 billion, 8 billion, not million. That was in 2023. We're India's second largest trading partner in Africa, and in 2023, we're already over $6 billion. And so sitting with my counterparts in the USG and saying these numbers are not reflective of the size of the American economy and the potential that Tanzania is proving, right? So it's real. We need to figure out what's not working for the American private sector, because clearly there are obstacles that need to be tackled. So what tools do you have or instruments that are available in other countries that we don't have with Tanzania? So this led to, for example, a signing of an MOU with US Exim Bank in 2023 for $500 million of exports from the US. It's all about exports from the US. You won't believe that until now, less than $50 million of exports from the US have been unlocked with the support and the backing of the US government. So this continues to be a challenge. You know, why doesn't the average American private sector, and I've been around the country, why aren't they trading with Africa? And I would start off by asking, who are your top 10 export destinations if you were trading? Why don't you have Africa? In all the states I've been to, no African country ranks in the top 10. As long as you're exporting, and we are importing what you are exporting, but we're importing it from Europe, we're importing from Asia, we're not importing from the US. Where's the gap, and how do we close that gap? And one of the measures we took, this is government to government, so we have to fix this, but it looks like there's infrastructure that's missing, is we signed a commercial dialogue framework with the Department of Commerce, which provides a platform where the government can receive feedback from the private sector, both on the US side and the Tanzania side, and then leverage all instruments possible to turn the situation around and make Tanzania and Africa, because as I said, we border 8 countries, 6 of which are landlocked, so we're always thinking about access. They depend on access to the port through Tanzania, is how we then leverage the opportunity that presents. We have regional economic blocks. Tanzania is part of EAC, Kenya is part of. By the way, Kenya is one of our top export market destinations, and they're also one of our top investors. So that's how close we are. And SADC, which is Southern Africa Development Community, and this is a market of 500 million people. So the market opportunity, Tanzania is too small. We're about 65 million people, 75% under the age of 30. So clearly the purchasing power, if you just focus on Tanzania, is not there. You need to look at a much bigger area. And so these regional economic blocks, and that's why my brother was talking about us working together. We're not competing. We need each other so that we can become a viable market.
Why don't we talk a little bit about that? If you've been to East Africa, you generally see American HVAC units. You see a lot of Pringles, oddly enough. Everybody likes Pringles there, it seems like. What things could entrepreneurs here in the U.S. potentially sell into that market that people are looking for? You mentioned it's a very young population, about 75% of the population under the age of 30.
I invite my brother to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank, for that. I'll say this, first, number one, is to look at the key sectors. The first thing you look at when you're coming into a market, not just a continent of Africa, the first thing you look at is viability of projects and the commercial viability of projects, yeah, and long-term sustainability of the industry you're getting into. There are quite a number of, so let me start here first, number one. When anyone talks about Africa, they look at the risks. But I'll tell you about the risks in Africa. Majority of the risks you see in Africa are perceived risks, not actually real risks. Yeah. Now, what Africa offers you is actually opportunities. Before lunch, there was a panelist of extremely talented ladies who were here talking about the issue of marketing, where we need to market ourselves better, and Africa also needs to do that much better. But this starts by each one of us stepping up and looking at the opportunities and seeing how we can collaborate. There's a great company we have in Washington, D.C. that is actually an American-owned company It's called HQ, and John Barnes, I believe, is somewhere here, runs that company. That company has been able to establish a private members club in Kenya, in Nairobi. That club is frequented by Americans, by Kenyans, by everyone, international visitors, and it's top. It's not any different from what's here. John told me the other day that it was much easier to get that company registered than he had to register a company in Washington, D.C. So it's not complex to do stuff in Africa, but let me get you into the real stuff. When you get into Africa, and I keep telling people, when you see a bad airport, don't see that as, oh, Africa has bad infrastructure. Look at that airport as an opportunity. I look at New York, the New York JFK. JFK is actually currently under, what do you call this? They've got new terminals being built up. And it was actually very amazing, because actually I just did Google. I looked at the companies who were developing that company. It's actually African-American, it's an African-American consortium that's developing JFK. Why can those consortiums be brought into Africa? Now let's talk about when we talked about size and scale. An airport, to develop an airport, a lot of black-owned businesses will share away because of the size. It costs about $3 billion to develop an airport. Now, how many people have that kind of money? Not too many. How many people have the brains to get that? Very many. Now, this is how we do it. There are very many instruments in the US, for example, which are owned by the US government, which are available for Americans of all races, all colors. And one of them is what USTDA offers. USTDA offers project development of up to $2 million for you to develop, to do a feasibility study on a project. That needs to be used much more by African Americans to look for opportunities in Africa. That $2 billion can easily unlock a lot of African Americans doing new opportunities in various sectors. I'm talking about airports. There's very many airports required in Africa. Energy sector is a huge area of opportunity when you're looking at transmission lines, power generation, when you look at the technology side, building data centers. I loved when the lady spoke here earlier about AI. AI does not have sufficient data that talks to us. Africa is an area whereby data about Africans can be pulled from Africa. But this requires, American companies, hopefully one of you here, to invest in data centers and AI and to partner up with Africans. If you look at when people talk about risk in Africa, and you wonder, why are people from the East, primarily, look at how China is very vested in Africa. There are very many American companies in Africa, but very few African Americans. One thing I'll say from a Kenya government, we're looking at you as partners. Yeah? We're looking at you as partners, and we will welcome you to invest. And we will walk you through the journey. The regulatory frameworks are already set. So you don't, and by the way, they're not different from here. If you want to do a big infrastructure project or a small infrastructure project in Africa, and in Kenya, it's the same platform that you go with right here. As I've told you, John Barnes invested in a business in Kenya. It was easier for him to set up in Kenya than he did in Washington, D.C. So we welcome investments. So just the last point here is, Africa also offers you something that people don't take advantage of, is the availability of capital markets. So you do not need to come in with your own money to develop big projects. You can be able to leverage on the local financial markets, which is banks, and the capital markets. And environments like Kenya, we have had the most stable currency in the continent. Coupled with that, very controlled inflation rates. So it's not any different from anywhere else in the world. So we do welcome you. And actually, I'll say this, leverage on people like John Barnes, who can tell you their journey of investments. And you start with one small investment, it can scale up into huge investments. And there's no other continent with the level of opportunities like Africa.
If I may jump in now.
Of course, Ambassador Elsie, you should.
So back to your question, Frank. In terms of B2C, for a long time we've had companies like Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, been in Tanzania and many countries. in Africa for a while, P&G. We have, in recent years, seen KFC, Pizza Hut franchises springing up and expanding. Marriott owns multiple properties. Now they're actually going in directly to invest. So the hospitality industries is picking up. My team and I focus a lot more on B2G and B2B. Because our interest is to get our trade figures to where our trade figures with China are, and we're not going to get there fast with the B2C. It needs to be more of a B2B. With B2B, key imports from the US is equipment, mining equipment, agricultural equipment, transportation equipment, and components. As a government, over the last 5 years, we spent over $1 billion buying aircraft from Boeing, including Africa's first freight carrier, so actually designed as a freight carrier, not repurposed. And quite frankly, the key thing is that we need business and business to meet and interact. So advocating for trade missions, reverse trade missions. In terms of facilitative bodies, we have an MOU with the US Chamber of Commerce, Corporate Council on Africa. Last year in May, we launched a Tanzania Trade Office in Dallas, invited by the mayor of Dallas, as well as the Tanzanian American Chamber of Commerce to support that. So again, how do we create this environment and infrastructure that can support B2B engagement backed by the government? In terms of Trade Office, we were the first African country and the second country after France. And I'm happy to share that the mayor of Dallas will be visiting Tanzania in 2 weeks' time, and we'll be signing a sister city cooperation agreement between Dallas and Tanzania, and that will be the first cooperation agreement they have with an African country. So I'm saying all of this to say that we're making a lot of efforts to ensure that the governments and everything they can bring to the table is really centered on supporting all the needs and the concerns and the gaps and really just incentivizing the environment so that we can be equally as attractive as investing in Asia, investing in Latin America, and those instruments are in place. But ultimately, you need to meet your counterparts, as my brother from Kenya said, because you need local partners. And so anything we can do that can facilitate B2B. B2G is pretty straightforward. We have international tenders. It's e-procurement. Everything is online. You have to go in and bid the same way you would do here. That's open to the whole world. And so again, it's also an opportunity, happy to share how you can do that and go into the portal and see what's available. But the opportunity is there.
I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by what they're hearing today. So Ambassador, let's start with you. If someone wants to start a business in Kenya, or if they just want to visit and just kind of see the business landscape, where should they start?
Actually, I'll say it's a global rule book. First, number one, the way you look for business in Asia is not any different from how you look for business in Africa. First, look at the priorities for the country. Look at their roadmap. Look at their long-term sustainable plans. In Kenya, we've got a Vision 2030. Look at that and pick up opportunities. However, that does not include all the emerging opportunities. So I will say is that bring innovation. For example, our Vision 2030 does not have AI included into that. It's because AI is very recent, even right here. Yeah. So look at the emerging trends and see what you can do to scale up. Now, scale is critical because when you look at Africa and talk about a country, you can say that Kenya is too small with a $100 million deal, or a $20 million deal is too small. However, if you look at even just a $5 million deal, but you can replicate it times 100, that's $500 million in deals. Yeah. So one thing that I'll say is look at the long-term plan for a country and look at how you can replicate these opportunities. Yeah. But to a point that Ambassador Elsie said, Kanza, sorry. Look at partnerships. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Look for friends. Look for partners. There are big farms which are in the US that are based in Kenya or anywhere in Africa. Look at them, get from the experience, and see what you can do to enter the markets.
Is there a Nairobi Chamber of Commerce? Is there like a starting point where you can go and get business resources?
Absolutely. We've got Kenya Investment Council. You can access them 24 hours. To set up a business, by the way, to register a business in Kenya can be done in 2 hours. Yeah? 2 hours. Much better than almost anywhere in the world. Yeah? So that is available for you. And to get all the data, it's available online. We do have a Chamber of Commerce. We've got Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Kenya Manufacturing, KEPSA. We've got many platforms that enable you come to the table and leverage on people like us, because we'll enable you and walk you through the journey to invest in Kenya. And before you take the mic from me, let me say this. It's very important to highlight this. I've never seen a forum like this before, with loads of African Americans sitting on one table to look at how to advance each other. I would encourage Alfonso on this. And actually, I want to challenge Alfonso on this. I want to see the GBEF come to Africa, and we will walk you through to invest in Africa. Yeah? And Kenya is offering a space for that. And lastly, we've talked about the serious stuff. Africa is also the home of fun.
All right, we got to end on that note. Ambassador Elsie, I want to give you one last, because we are out of time. If someone wants to directly invest in Tanzania, do you have some similar organizations, like he's saying Kenya Invest and also the Nairobi Chamber of Commerce? What are some similar organizations in Tanzania?
We have similar organizations. So we have Tanzania Investment Center, for example. Tanzania is a union of Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar. So investment is not a union matter. So we also have a Zanzibar Investment Promotion Agency. And we have umbrella bodies for different kinds of associations, including trade-related associations. But if you don't mind, before you take my mic away, I'd just like to build on something that Ambassador Chris shared about being in a room with the group of African-American executives, private sector. This is actually my second time. I spent a lot of time with the National Institute for Minority Economic Development in North Carolina after I attended their annual convention 3 years ago. For the first time, we worked together after I first spoke there, and we managed to get a mission of 12 business executives visiting Tanzania in March of this year. The number was bigger, but then after the elections, a lot of people decided to wait it out. As we left the country from their one-week mission, several of them were already opening offices, speaking, they'd already connected with lawyers, they were getting going, they had seen how they could hit the ground running. And so I'm just sharing that because there's a group out there that, where they can share what they saw. They were able to engage with African Americans who are invested in Tanzania. Some of you may not know that we were home to many of the advocates and champions of the Black Panther, for example, so the civil rights movement. So we have strong communities of African Americans, and they gave very frank perspectives also about what it means to be an African American doing business in a country like Tanzania or otherwise. So I would be very open to helping to make those connections because it's helpful to get a true picture of how to get going.
All right, we do have to leave the conversation there. Ambassador Elsie Kanza, Ambassador Chris Kirigua, big round of applause, come on. And I think they'll be available if you want to find more information about how to invest in either country.